It's the Happy Families Podcast. It's the podcast for the time-poor parent who just wants answers now.
A couple of weeks ago on the Happy Families podcast, we did an episode about dad jokes and the importance of humour in family life. Then last week, we looked at some research that has come out on our Doctor's Desk episode that showed that parents who use humour have better relationships with their kids. And Kylie, you raised an interesting point, and that is that humour doesn't always work. You were raised in a home where there wasn't a lot of humour, but one of those reasons is because you come from a home where people tend to take everything quite seriously. And if somebody was to say something with a hint of sarcasm, if somebody was to say something that was a little bit roast-oriented, it would not go down well. It could cause some family relationship issues. That got us thinking. The new trend, everyone's letting ChatGPT roast their Insta feeds. We've done that at Happy Families. I'll share what it said about our Insta feed shortly. But I wanted to have a conversation about how humour works in families for good and for evil, because it can be wonderful, as the research we talked about on the Doctor's Desk episode showed last week. But sometimes, oh my goodness, it can be absolutely terrifyingly dangerous.
Well, before I even realised this was a trend, Jared and Chanel, our eldest daughter, and her husband, they gave it a go. And I'm telling you, we just laughed our heads off. I don't know what's so bad about this.
Sure, hit me with it. So what is this their Instagram feed roast?
This is their Instagram feed. Jared's was. Your Instagram feed looks like a Hallmark card factory exploded. Complete with golden hour lighting, adorable baby giggles, and more perfect hair than a shampoo commercial.
So this is because they've just had a baby in the last year and they've got nothing but...
And Jared has long hair like Fabio.
Right, and so does Chanel, yeah.
Seriously, we get it. You've mastered the art of family photos. Are you trying to make the rest of us look bad? Maybe throw in a messy kitchen or a toddler tantrum next time just to remind us that you're human.
Right. That doesn't feel like a roast.
It does
That feels like it's very much a compliment with a couple of backhanders thrown in.
So Chanel's wasn't much better either. It said, your Instagram feed is a delightful, albeit slightly chaotic mix of family moments, adorable baby pics, selfies, and random scenes that scream, I'm living life on shuffle. From maternity shots and couple selfies to beach days and construction site cameos, it's like you're trying to fit every life milestone into a single grid. The feed radiates warmth and happiness, but a bit more consistency or a cohesive theme could help tie everything together.
Yeah, that doesn't feel like a roast.
Still, it's clear you're sharing what matters most to you and what makes it uniquely yours.
Which is kind of funny because when you look for a roast, you really want it to burn, and that doesn't feel like it burns.
But that's what I mean.
And so it's not as funny as it could be if it was really burning. Does that make sense? This is the Happy Families Instagram roast, okay? I've just, Evelyn in the office has sent this to me, especially in preparation for today's podcast. I don't think you've heard this.
I haven't.
Your Instagram feed looks like it's where inspirational quotes and parenting advice go for a spa day. The colour scheme screams, I'm soothing, trust me, while your captions are like that friend who's always a little too chipper at 6 a.m.
I reckon Ev's feeling really good about herself right now.
It's almost like your posts are trying to raise the parents instead of the kids. If only those inspirational quotes could do the dishes. And let's not forget the endless carousel of how to parent better tips that make us wonder, when do you actually sleep? Anyway, Evelyn didn't like it. She said it wasn't mean enough. So she told it to do better. Isn't AI amazing? I mean, seriously, I don't know if it's changing the world. I don't know if it's curing cancer, but it sure is spitting out some entertaining content, which is, oh my goodness. So this was the harsh one that it sent us. Your Instagram feed is like the Pinterest board of a self-help junkie who discovered Canva and never looked back. The pastel overload is so aggressive it might as well come with a side of kale smoothies. Those life-changing tips and quotes are basically parenting fortune cookies. Predictable, saccharine, and a little too proud of themselves. Your captions read like you're trying to win Parent of the Year in a competition no one else entered. And honestly, all those perfectly posed family photos, they're more staged than a reality TV show. When's the last time you let your hair down and posted something real? So harsh, right? So harsh. So that got me thinking, how does humour fit in a family? And roasting has always been a thing. When I was a kid, we used to love to, and like we would roast somebody, but we didn't use that terminology.
No, in your family it was tush.
Yeah. We'd bait each other and say horrible things to each other. But it was things like if somebody did a good one, everyone in the group would look at the person who'd just been roasted and go, "Oh, burn!" Like there was that. Oh, that's got to hurt. That's got to cause some pain. And yet, for the most part, as much as as an adult, as a mature adult who's trying to cultivate compassion and kindness and generosity.
You still like the burn?
No. I cringe. It makes me feel awful. And the Tom Brady roast is the most famous roast of all, which happened, I don't know, maybe 6 months ago now, something like that. I watched a portion of it and I had to turn it off. It was brutal. The things that these people were saying, the things that they were saying about his sporting career or about his divorce. These things they went to places that are hurtful. And these are strangers who have roasted this guy. I was about to say,
the people that don't have, like, there's no relationship there. They
That's
just
right.
get to have an opinion because someone's in the limelight.
Yeah, they're comedians who are being paid to roast this guy. And of course, he has agreed to show up and be roasted. That's part of the fun of it, right? Yeah, I'm a good sport. I can take whatever you throw at me. I'm a successful person. I need to be brought back down to earth. There's roasting. And a lot of the time in our families, that doesn't happen. But as I watched it, it just caused me pain to think that people could say such unkind and cruel things and call it funny. And again, in line with the last few podcasts that we've done around humour and families, it just made me think, what is the role of humour and how do we know where the line exists? Kylie, a family member that I just don't have anything to do with anymore, I stopped having anything to do with him because of his sarcasm. Every word that came out of his mouth felt sarcastic. It felt like it was a put down. And it was all in an attempt to be cool, to be funny, to use humour to make a point, but it just felt belittling and
but
denigrating.
That's not humour, it's sarcasm.
In their mind, though, it is. And
yeah, but humour is only humour if both people consider that funny.
Maybe. But the thing is, you often don't know if the other person will consider it funny or not until you've said it. And then you might be so impressed with your humour. I mean, how often do you look at someone and say, "Oh, come on, it was just a joke, that was funny." And they're like, "No, it wasn't funny, it was offensive." Therefore, I have three ideas that highlight the benefits of roasting and trash talk in a family, because I think there really are. And I want to acknowledge that. I don't want to sound all stiff and starchy, because it can be really fun to tear strips off people in the right context with the right tone for the right reasons, but it can also be terribly destructive. And I want to share research that highlights 3 different concerns that we might have, things that we need to be careful of, challenges when it comes to roasting and trash talking in our close and personal relationships.
So I really struggle with this conversation because number one, I just...
Because you're a serious person who grew up in a serious house.
I am a serious person and I did grow up in a serious house. But
Yes.
I believe that if I'm going to have an interaction with someone, I want it to be an uplifting conversation. I want it, and I can still have fun with that. But if my intent is to pull somebody down, then that doesn't meet my ends of striving to live a life where I make a positive difference in people's lives.
Okay, so here are 3 reasons that you might be concerned about roasting and trash talk in a family, based on an amalgamation of a bunch of different studies that look at how that negative relational discourse can happen. Number 1, it can very, very easily cross a line into hurtful teasing. You have to make sure that whoever you're saying this to gets the context, that they know that this is playful.
But you don't ever know that.
Right.
Because as an individual, when somebody says that to you, especially in a group setting, more times than not, especially when you're talking about teenagers, we laugh because everybody else is laughing. But deep down, you've just cut a massive hole in my heart.
Exactly. And the thing is, and this is why I'm sensitive to this, jokes that target sensitive areas or personal insecurities, or jokes that are mean-spirited, can really cause emotional harm and damage relationships. I mean, it really does undermine trust. Unless the other person is in on the joke, playing along, and even then, sometimes they're doing it to save face.
That's right.
So it can be very, very tricky. Second, and this is a really big one for me, I think that when we get involved in trash talking and roasting and these so-called playful put-downs, what we often do is we build a culture of disrespect. Like if that becomes the primary mode of communication, or even if it's just a regular part of communication, respect and kindness get undermined, relationships get strained. It becomes hard to be vulnerable with the people who you're closest to if everything that you say could suddenly become a target and you end up being victimized over and over and over again because of your sensitivities and vulnerabilities. You just don't want to share stuff. That culture of disrespect is painful.
That kind of reminds me of the conversation we just had with the kids the other night when something happened and they looked at us and went, is that podcast material now?
Yeah, that's right. Got to be careful. Mum and Dad might use it for content. Third one is that it impacts on vulnerable family members, especially children, younger kids. They're usually, I shouldn't say usually, but they're often not going to understand the nuances that are involved in whether it's sarcasm or a playful roast, and they're much more likely to internalise those negative comments. Even me as a nearly 50-year-old man, every now and again, just recently a family member said something at an extended family get-together, and it took me 2 or 3 weeks to kind of get past it and realise that it was just a playful roast. I took it to heart. It really stabbed me because I happened to have a sensitivity or vulnerability in that area that I never knew that I had until it came up on the night. And when that happens, that people don't feel safe. They don't feel respected. It feels like a culture of disrespect. So they're my 3 big reasons that I think we've got to be so careful if we're going to engage ourselves in roasting.
Well, like I said, I still don't agree with this trash talk conversation in any way, shape or form, but you're obviously got a list of positives that can come out of roasting.
Yeah, let me see if I can convince you that there could be some gain to be had. So the first one is that it can strengthen bonds. If it's done in a playful and a lighthearted way, it can bring people closer together. It's that witty banter, the shared humour, the camaraderie. It can lead to increased feelings of, I'm going to use the word intimacy and connection. If it's done playfully and everybody is on the same page that we are goofing off and that there's no harm, no foul.
So I can think of other ways to have fun.
Of course.
Without going down this road when you've already given me a big list of possibilities that are not great.
Secondly, it can build resilience. And what do I mean by that? Well, if the roasting and the trash talk is good-natured, like let's say you're out on the sporting field with one of the kids and you're kicking a ball or you're tackling each other or you try to, shoot hoops or beat each other in a race around a track or something like that, you can throw a little bit of trash talk their way and that makes them fight harder or push through more or get gritty and resilient and do hard things. And it also gives you the chance to laugh at yourself. Like sometimes in those really desperate moments when you say something that's a bit of a roast either on yourself or somebody else, it just makes everybody laugh and recognize that what we're doing right now, we're taking it so seriously and we're just goofing off in the park. There's not even an audience. No one's watching. We're not playing for sheep stations. There's no multi-million-dollar contracts on offer. And I just think that it can be fun from that point of view.
Is this just because you're a boy?
Yeah, boys do it a lot more than girls.
They do.
Yeah, they do.
What's number 3?
I think now I'm trepidatious about sharing this one, but I reckon that it can. If you engage in really clever verbal sparring, it requires really quick thinking. It requires wit. It requires the ability to express ourselves in a fun and humorous way. And when you couple that with the connection and the bonds and the resilience that it can create, I think that it can actually boost confidence and boost communication abilities and turns it into a fun, engaging interaction. It makes life spicy.
Okay, so I'm just going to flip this all on its head.
Okay.
And I think more important than learning the art of trash talking would be teaching our kids the art of learning to laugh at themselves. If we can take ourselves less seriously in the moments where we stuff up, we make mistakes, and it's okay, because then you're the one leading the conversation. You're the one who's going, it's okay, I look like a goofball, it's fine. And we can have a good laugh about it together as opposed to somebody else putting shade on the other person.
I really love that.
You're going to have, I think, a much happier and healthier family relationship.
I really, really love that. Now, this is a hard podcast for me as well because roasting and trash talking are not something that I facilitate or encourage, and I just think we've got to be so careful there. fundamentally, your idea is a much better one than what this whole podcast was about. But I wanted to do this podcast because we've been talking so much about humour in families, but also because a lot of families are not like you and I. A lot of families love to do some trash talk. A lot of families love to roast each other, and they really get into it. So my caution would be, if you are one of those families that really does enjoy a good lot of banter, a good lot of just paying out on each other because it is fun and funny in your home, empathy is the critical thing here. Be cautious, be empathic, watch body language carefully. And if you think that there's been any rupture in the relationship, make sure you dive in and repair it really effectively.
Ooh, sick burn.
We really hope that this podcast has given you some food for thought. Maybe it's changed the way that you want to engage with roasting and trash talk, and it's time to ban it all together. Or maybe you can see that you can do it in ways that are going to work for your family and improve the family dynamic as a result, because what has been happening has not been healthy. The Happy Families podcast is produced by Justin Rulon from Bridge Media. More information about making your family happier is available at happyfamilies.com.au.